Okay, so the next thing that we need to talk about here is parallel and perpendicular lines. Okay, so what do we know about the slopes of parallel and perpendicular lines? Well, hopefully you guys remember, if two lines are parallel, that means that they have the same slope. They have to have the exact same slope, which makes sense because parallel lines, right? Parallel lines never touch. That's the whole definition of a parallel lines. So if I have a line starting right here and I have another line that's starting right here, okay? If those two lines are parallel, when this line moves up 2 and to the right 1, if we never want these two lines to touch, this one would also have to move up 2 and move to the right 1. They have to increase at the same rate. If they don't increase at the same rate, they're going to end up crossing somewhere, right? So parallel lines have to have the same slope because they have to have the same amount of increase or decrease if they're going the other way. Okay? So how do you identify if two lines are parallel? Well, you want to get them into your y equals form. And you can look when they're in their y equals form, do they have the same slope? Yes, they do. Okay? So if I gave you guys 2x minus 3y equals 2 and a 4x minus 6y equals 5. How would you guys tell if these two lines are parallel? Solve for y. Solve for y. As long as you solve both of those for y, you're going to do that, then you're going to look at the slope. Do they have the same slope? If they do, then that means that they are parallel. Okay? Perpendicular lines. Perpendicular lines. Remember, those are the lines that cross. So perpendicular lines that are going to cross, but it's special how they cross. Because when they cross, they create a 90-degree angle. So perpendicular lines are lines that cross and specifically create a 90-degree angle. So it's not just the fact that they cross, it's the fact that they cross and they create a 90-degree angle. Now, how do we tell if a line is perpendicular? Well, there's a couple things. Okay? One that you might have heard of before is perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocals for slopes, or you might have heard the word negative reciprocals. Okay? So first off, reciprocal. What does reciprocal mean? Well, remember the reciprocal of 2/3. What's the reciprocal of 2/3? The reciprocal would be 3/2. Okay? You just flip this fractions. That's what the reciprocal means. Okay? And then the negative or the opposite, what that means is that they have to have opposite signs. Okay? So if I was looking at the slope that we said, if I said we had 2/3 and we had negative 3/2, are those two slopes perpendicular? Well, are they reciprocals of each other? Yes. Is one of them positive and one of them negative? Yes. Then those two slopes are going to be perpendicular. Okay? You guys can look at this example down below here. We have 3, and it's a positive 3, and we have a negative 1/3. Okay? Remember, 3 is just 3 over 1. So are these two reciprocals of each other? Yes. Is one positive and one negative? Yes. So these two lines are perpendicular. The other way that you can tell if something is perpendicular is their slopes have to have a product of -1. Okay? And if they're opposite reciprocals or if they're negative reciprocals, they will have a product of -1. If I take 3 times -1/3, if I multiply that in my calculator, the answer is -1. If I take 2/3 times -3/2, the answer is -1. Okay? So that's a way that you can check if slopes are perpendicular in a more algebraic sense. Okay? All right. Now, that being said, how do you tell if two lines are perpendicular? Well, again, you're just going to look at their two slopes. Do they multiply together, give you -1, or can you recognize that they are opposite reciprocals or negative reciprocals? If you had two lines that look like this, your first step would be to solve for y and then look at those slopes. Okay? I kind of went through that pretty quick, how to identify those, but I do think that's quite a bit of review for you guys. So if you have questions, write them off to the side and we can answer those. All right, now the question that's going to deal with point slope form is, they are going to ask you to write an equation in slope-intercept form for the line that passes through 3, negative 2, and is perpendicular to the line whose equation is y equals negative 5x plus 1. So the reason we can use our point slope form on this is they have given us a point. So we know what our x sub 1 is, and we know what our y sub 1 is. And then they have inadvertently given us our slope as well. Because what they've done is they've told us that we need to find the line that is perpendicular. We need to find the line that is perpendicular. So that would be opposite reciprocal or negative reciprocal. And it needs to be perpendicular to this line right here. So your first step is to find the slope, because I'd have to do a little bit of work to find the slope is. I'm going to look at this line, y equals negative 5x plus 1, and identify, okay, the slope is negative 5. But I want perpendicular to negative 5. So if I have negative 5 over 1, right, because 5 would just be 5 over 1. So I've got negative 5, which is just 5 over 1. I need to find the perpendicular to that. So I need to find the opposite reciprocal. So since this is negative, I need this one to be positive. And then I need to do the reciprocal of 5 over 1. So it's going to be positive 1/5. So the perpendicular, I'm just going to stop there, perpendicular slope that I'm going to use is going to be a positive 1/5. Okay, because that's perpendicular to this line here. So I've got my point and I've got my slope. So now to find the equation of that line, I'm going to go y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And I'm just going to plug in like I was doing before. Y minus my y1 is negative 2 equals my slope, which is 1/5, times x minus my x sub 1 is 3. Okay, I'm just going to simplify 2 negatives, make a positive. Y plus 2 equals 1/5 times x. 1/5 times negative 3 gives me a negative 3/5. Okay, then I need to get y by itself, so I would subtract 2, and I get that y equals 1/5 x. I've got a negative 3/5 minus 2 would be 10 over 5. 10 over 5 would be the same as 2. So I get 1/5 minus 13 over 5. You can also plug that into your calculator if you don't like getting common denominators. But there's the equation of the line that is perpendicular to y equals negative 5x plus 1 and runs through the point 3, negative 2. Okay? The other type of question they could ask you guys is they could say, write an equation in slope-intercept form for the line that passes through negative 6, 3 and is parallel to the line whose equation is y equals 1/2 x plus 7. So, again, I have my point. So that's my x sub 1 and my y sub 1. This time they told me that it was parallel to this line here. Okay? So if the slope is parallel, my slope is 1/2, right? Parallel means what for their slopes? Well, parallel means they need to have the same slope. So the slope I'm going to use for this one should be the same. They're both going to be 1/2. Okay? The last one was perpendicular. That's why we had to do a little bit of figuring. But this one, they're parallel, so it's just the same. Okay? I'm going to plug this into my slope-intercept form. Whoops, I wrote that wrong. Sorry. It's going to be y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So I'm going to plug in getting out of control here. Y minus my y1 is going to be a 3 equals my m is a 1/2 times x minus negative 6. Okay. 2 negatives here do make a positive, so that's now an x plus 6. Y minus 3 equals 1/2 x. 1/2 times 6 is going to give me a 3. What's half of 6? Half of 6 is 3. Okay. Get y by itself, so I can I can add 3. Sorry. Add 3 to both sides. That gives me y equals 1/2 x plus 6. Okay. And that's how you find the line that is parallel. Okay. All you guys have left now is there's some on your own problems. Go ahead and work through those on your own problems. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to email me.